Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will be discussing the German musical fantasy film The Magic Flute. Spoiler ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins by introducing a boy named Tim, who is at the hospital with his sick father. Tim's father is very ill and doesn't have much time left. His dad's final wish is for Tim to become a musician, just like he was, because he believes music is a wonderful thing that can bring a lot of happiness. Tim shares his dad's love for music and knows a bit about it. After his father passes away, Tim goes to Austria a few months later to attend a music school. Since many people knew his dad and his connection to music, Tim easily gets accepted into the school. While on the train to the school, Tim meets a girl named Sophie. She's also heading to the same school and shares Tim's dream of becoming a musician. As they enjoyed music on the train, both Tim and Sophie eventually fell asleep. When they woke up, they had arrived in Austria. They met the school principal, who seemed unfriendly. The principal spoke highly of Tim's father and his musical talents. Tim proudly shared that he could sing and play the piano. Next, Tim met his teacher, who showed him to his room. He met his new roommate, who initially wasn't happy about having to share his space with Tim. This boy was used to being alone in his room. Over time, they became friends and the roommate helped Tim settle in and learn about the school. Later on, the roommate got into an argument with another student, who warned Tim to stay away from him. Tim found this situation strange and confusing. Tim's roommate confides in him, sharing his frustration about another boy at the school. He's upset about this boy's behavior, but he feels helpless because the boy's dad is a famous singer, giving him special treatment. The roommate wishes he could do something. The next day, the school principal gathers all the students in the hall to introduce Tim. In front of everyone, the principal asks Tim to sing a song. This request makes Tim nervous as he hadn't prepared anything. The principal reassures him, saying that singing doesn't require preparation, just using one's voice. He also mentions that being a good musician doesn't necessarily make someone a good singer, so he encourages Tim to sing without overthinking it. Tim overcomes his fear and starts singing, delivering a beautiful performance. However, the principal isn't pleased and claims that the song goes against the school's principles. The principal didn't like the song Tim sang. Now, there are two adventures waiting for him, one at school and another in a magical world. Tim has always loved reading stories. One day, he was reading a story called The Magic Flute, the same name as the movie. Just like in many stories, there's a prince who needs to save a princess. That very night, as Tim continued reading, he notices a bright light. He follows the light and it leads him to a library. There, he places a book on an empty shelf, and a path appears. Colorful balls of light surround him, swirling around. These lights tell Tim that if he wants to enter the magical world, he needs to become part of a story. He'll have to face whatever challenges come his way. If he doesn't want to, he can stay at the school. Tim had a choice to make, and he decided to pick the magical world. When he told the glowing balls of light about his decision, he suddenly found himself in a strange place. It might have been a magical world, with a desert all around. As Tim moved forward, a huge snake appeared, ready to attack him. Tim managed to escape from the snake's path and continued on. Another large snake crossed his path. Tim remembered that this world was special and connected to music. He began to sing, hoping to scare the snake away, but his song didn't work. Tim started to run away from the snake. Unfortunately, he slipped, fell, and fainted. In this mysterious realm, 3 magicians arrived and used their magic to make the snake fall asleep. Now that Tim was part of the unfolding story, the magicians decided to take him along. They walked a short distance before leaving Tim on his own. Later, a man arrived, known for capturing birds for the king of that realm. As Tim regained consciousness and spotted this man, he began to think that the man might have rescued him. Tim wondered if this person was his savior. The bird catcher believed Tim was a prince and had doubts about his identity. Tim inquired if the man had indeed saved him. The man confirmed, asking if Tim could grant him a name in return. As the magicians overheard Tim being referred to as a prince, they hurried back, revealing their anticipation for his arrival. They informed Tim that they had been waiting for a prince like him for many years, urging him to meet their queen. The chatty bird catcher, however, continued to speak excessively, prompting the magicians to cast a spell to silence him. Upon Tim's arrival, he learned that the queen was also a skilled magician. The queen's daughter had been taken away by a sinister man, a soldier serving the city's king. The queen appealed to Tim for assistance, reminding him of his princely status and urging him to rescue her daughter from the clutches of the malevolent soldier. Tim readily agreed and prepared himself for the task. During this journey, his companion and the magic flute assured him that these tools would aid him through any challenges they encountered. They set off to confront the soldier who had taken the queen's daughter. However, during their venture, Tim suddenly heard a voice calling out from behind. Abruptly, he was pulled back to his own world, away from the magical realm. It appeared that the time he spent in the magical world was connected to the library, and to return, he would have to wait until the next night. Upon his return, Tim kept the magical world a secret and resumed his musical studies. He also reconnected with his friend Sophie in the real world. As night fell once more, Tim returned to the library, replacing the book in its original position. This action transported him back into the enchanting world of magic. The soldier who had kidnapped the queen's daughter still ruled with cruelty. Undaunted, Tim ventured further into the magical realm. Guided by his companion, he arrived at the very spot where the queen's daughter had been captured. Tim's companion reassured the frightened girl, explaining that her mother had sent him to rescue her. Swiftly and skillfully, he liberated the queen's daughter from her captor's grip. Together, they made their escape, but their path intersected with Tim's. United now in their mission to save the queen's daughter, the group pressed onward. However, their progress was abruptly halted as the soldier and his comrades closed in, surrounding them from all sides. In this critical moment, Tim's loyal companion utilized the music box gifted to him by the magicians. As they pressed forward, Tim's companion skillfully surrounded the soldier and his followers. The unexpected arrival of the king prompted everyone to bow in respect. The king inquired about the situation, and the queen's daughter bravely recounted her ordeal, how she had been kidnapped by the soldier and rescued by Tim and his companion. Hearing the truth, the king was consumed by anger towards his own soldier. He declared that the queen's daughter must undergo a series of tests to prove her claims. Following the king's command, the soldiers covered Tim and his companions' faces with cloths. At that very moment, Tim was transported back to his own world as his time in the magical realm ended. Despite his return, Tim kept his extraordinary experiences a secret, sharing nothing with anyone. Meanwhile, in Tim's real-world life, his roommate grew increasingly frustrated with his mysterious late-night disappearances, which Tim never explained. Yet, Tim remained unwilling to divulge anything to his roommate. In another daring move, Tim ventured into Tim's room, which was against the rules due to the gender restrictions. When his roommate approached, Tim's awareness was abruptly jolted. His time to immerse himself in the story's world was upon him once again. Without a word, he left Sophie behind and made his way to the library. Passing through the door, he re-entered the world of magic. Upon his return, Tim discovered that the queen's daughter was nowhere to be found. Tim explained his tardiness to the king, who reassured him that he hadn't arrived late. The king outlined a test that Tim must undertake before being allowed to rescue the queen's daughter. If he remained silent for an extended period, he would be granted an audience with her. Following this instruction, Tim and his loyal companion were led to a secluded area, surrounded by soldiers, and they were required to maintain absolute silence. The duration of their required silence was not specified, but eventually, Tim collapsed and lost consciousness. During this time, the story shifts to reveal the queen's daughter once again in the custody of the soldier. Her mother arrives, questioning why the prince, sent to rescue her, hadn't fulfilled his mission. This moment unveils the cunning nature of the queen. Her true intentions become clear. She had actually orchestrated her daughter's presence with the sinister purpose of assassinating the king to attain immortality. Her daughter was being used as a pawn in her devious plan. The queen discloses her scheme to her daughter before departing to carry out her treacherous agenda. Unbeknownst to her, the soldier had overheard her words and quickly alerted the king to the impending danger. When the king confronts the queen's daughter, she reveals the truth about her mother's plot. The king begins his search for Tim, who is now missing from the scene. Tim made his way to meet the queen's daughter, but due to his enforced silence, he was unable to communicate with anyone. Despite his attempts to speak, he remained silent, and she eventually walked away in frustration. After the stipulated time, Tim successfully completed his test and was allowed to return to his world. Back in his own reality, Tim discovered that Sophie had been expelled from school for breaking its rules. Rushing to meet her, Tim sought to explain the situation, but Sophie, feeling betrayed by his apparent lack of support, refused to see him. Tim attempted to clarify that ending the story was necessary for them to be together, but Sophie, unaware of this, remained skeptical of his words. Afterward, Tim turned to his roommate, recounting the tale of his entanglement in the world of magic, his encounters with enchantments, and the magic flute's role in it all. His roommate remains unconvinced, but Tim returns to the magical world once more. This time, he uncovers the queen's sinister plot. She aims to bring destruction and overthrow the king's rule using dark magic. Tim, embodying the story's princess, is the key to fixing this crisis. He meets the queen's daughter and devises a pathway on the ground, which triggers a fiery obstacle. Using his enchanted flute, Tim guides them through the perilous flames, leading them into the safety of water. Tim's vital task is to save the queen's daughter, who represents the story's princess, and thwart the queen's destructive plans. It's a challenging endeavor that Tim must accomplish to bring the story to a successful conclusion. Rescuing the princess was a tough challenge, yet Tim managed to succeed. The queen's dark magic was defeated, bringing peace to the king's city. Ultimately, the princess became the queen's daughter, wrapping up the story with a happy ending where a prince saved her from the darkness. Saying his goodbyes in the magical realm, Tim returned to his own world. However, his focus shifted to reuniting with his love, Sophie, who had left. Tim rushed to the station, fearing he was too late, but he discovered Sophie was still there. Their embrace marked a joyful reunion, symbolizing Tim's victory in both worlds, real and magical. This heartwarming conclusion brought the movie's story to a close. Thank you for watching our recap. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and feel free to explore our other recaps.